Hello and welcome to... Oh, I don't think you can see me, this isn't really working, is it? I need a bit of light. I've got a magic wand here. Let's see if this works. I've been practicing this. To utter the magic words, whatever they are. Mattanory, Luminatus. Oh, there you go. That worked, didn't it? So, how about that? Now that's magic. Welcome to the spooky Samhain or Halloween edition of Mattanory. I have my cauldron smoking here, so I'm going to see if I can sort of pull anything out of it. I've got some magical herbs here, so let's see what happens here. So hopefully we won't get too smoked out. I need to put them in very carefully because it's a fine art to this thing here. So let's see what we've got going on here. Oh, there's something emerging here. Oh, well, that's not quite what I wanted yet. That's a bottle of mead. I'll save that for later. I'm looking for my book. Okay, hang on. It's in here somewhere. Yep, I think I've got it. Here's my book. And this story involves this magical cauldron here. This story is called Ceridwen's Cauldron. Now, Ceridwen was an ancient moon goddess, and some thought the mother to our planet. One day she gave birth to twins, a girl and a boy. Her daughter, Ceridwen, she was a beauty and highly intelligent. Everyone loved her. But the boy, well, dark hair covered most of his little body. And he wasn't particularly bright either. His mother named him Avagdo, meaning black wings, because his dark soft down reminded her of a raven's magnificent blue-black feathers. She thought he was the most wonderful boy alive. But as Avagdo grew, it became plain to Ceridwen that she alone was the only one that thought him attractive. And he wasn't very good at school either. He never turned up for lessons, never really paid attention. And the goddess grew tired of hearing the others' rude whispers about how ugly and stupid her son was. So she decided to use her knowledge of magical plants and magical herbs to help him. So she gathered roots of certain plants that would stop unwanted body hair from growing, flowers that could lighten the skin, and nectar to make its eyes clear and bright. She placed these herbs in a great iron cauldron, mixed with pure spring water, and placed the pot over a fire of applewood and hazel branches. And after much stirring and gentle simmering, the brew was ready for Ceridwen, and she poured the elixir into Avagdo's bedtime milk. But after he drank it, things took a turn for the worse. His eyes, well, they did shine more brightly, but his odd little face became even darker and hairier than before. And more children began to tease him, and unkind adults talked openly about that foolish, hairy crow boy. His mother became more determined than ever to make a remedy to cure her son's problems. Her herb lore was vast. She knew that if she collected all the sacred plants in all the world and brewed them in her magical cauldron for 1 year and 1 day, she would have a medicine to make her child the most handsome and the most intelligent boy on earth. So, Ceridwen set out to gather those plants. She crossed all the oceans and the seas, trekked through dusty deserts, tramped through dark forests, and climbed tall mountains. Each root, seed and herb and flower she found was lovingly brought back home to Wales and put into her cauldron. Now, whilst the goddess was away, her neighbour's young boy, Gwion, was left to look after the cooking. He'd been shown how to keep the pot heating gently and how to stir carefully and slowly with a long spoon made of walnut wood. Gwion knew that this herb soup was very special and very important, and whatever happened, he was never to taste it. Ceridwen had made him promise not to let the brew pass his lips if it killed. Now, 1 year and 1 day is a very long time for a young boy to sit tending a fire and stirring a big pot of soup. A few times he fell asleep and nearly let the fire go out, but he always managed to rekindle the flames just in time to keep the potion simmering in the cooking pot. Once he even dropped the spoon in the pot and he had to fish it out with a long twig, being careful to prevent any splashes from escaping. And finally, the day arrived when the mystical liquid was ready. Gwion waited for Ceridwen to return. He knew that she would arrive on the wind and conduct a magical ceremony involving the bubbling liquid in her cauldron, and then she would then give her elixir to the child, Agvagadu. But something awful happened. As Gwion gave one final stir to the steaming potion, 3 drops of hot liquid splashed, hissing out of the pot and landing on his finger. It scalded his skin, and he yelled out in pain and without thinking sucked his sore finger into his mouth to soothe the burn. In that instant, Gwion was transformed from a boy to a man, from a student to a wise teacher. He knew that all the magical essence of that brew had been contained within those 3 little drops, and now all the wisdom of the world was in him. What was left in the cauldron was deadly. Even breathing in the fumes would kill a person. An ear-splitting crack made Gwion jump, and the giant cauldron broke in 2. He leapt away, just managing to avoid the poisonous concoction as it poured out onto the shattered container, onto the floor. Gwion fled from Ceridwen's house, fearing what would happen and what she would do to him. She discovered that he'd stolen the gift intended for her son. All too soon, Ceridwen returned. She saw immediately that Gwion was gone, and that all that was left in her broken cauldron was a deadly brew of poison. Gathering herself up into the sky, a dark storm of cloud of fury, she vowed to hunt Gwion, hunt him down and kill him. With a sinking heart, Gwion saw the storm cloud grow. It would have been impossible for a normal man or woman to escape from the angry goddess. But Gwion had his new superpowers of wisdom and intelligence. Now he had a slim chance of outwitting Ceridwen and escaping her vengeance. What is the fastest thing in the world, he asked himself. And the answer blew back with him on the air. Of course! And Gwion changed himself to a gust of wind and sped away from the angry goddess. He blew for many miles, but eventually grew too tired to continue in that form. So he stopped to rest. But the furious shrieks of Ceridwen thundering storm cloud grew rapidly nearer. He then turned himself into a fine, fast hare and ran for his life. But Ceridwen was also a shapeshifter, and she changed into a sleek greyhound. In that moment, she closed in on the hare, her sharp white teeth gnashing ready to rip and kill her prey. And feeling the dog's breath on his fur, Gwion leapt into the river and turned himself into a strong silver fish. The powerful ripples of his body took him quickly downstream and dived into the water in pursuit of her prey. The clever goddess turned into an otter and dived after him. Gwion saw the flash of wet fur and 2 black eyes staring into his. The otter opened his mouth wide to bite. Gwion changed into a tiny bird, flying with all his might out the river into the bushes. He darted and fluttered under the branches, between the thorns and all of the leaves. The goddess leapt out of the river, and she turned herself into a mighty hawk, swooping in after the little bird. Gwion's tiny bird heart beat so fast he feared it might pop. The hawk's razor-sharp talons tore at the branches above him. In desperation, he left the bushes and flew into the open door of a farmer's barn. His body crashed into a pile of grain. And this gave Gwion an idea. He turned himself into a single grain of wheat. Here at last, buried amongst the thousands of other grains, he must surely be safe from the angry goddess. But nothing could deceive a supernatural being as clever and powerful as Ceridwen. moon goddess and mother of all. She changed into a plump black hen and pecked with great delight at all the grain into the barn. Eventually, Gwion too was all swallowed up, disappearing whole inside her belly. But this is where it gets interesting. He stayed there for 9 months, growing as new life inside the all-powerful goddess. Ceridwen was very annoyed that she was carrying this boy, a child who had tricked and deceived her, so she planned to kill him. But when he was born, she was amazed by his perfect beauty. She couldn't slay this gorgeous little baby boy. Instead, she wrapped him carefully inside a soft cloth, placed him into a strong leather bag and set him to float on the sea in a small coracle woven from water reeds. And the next day, the boat drifted ashore many miles away. A washerwoman found the baby and took him home. Her husband thought he was a very fine boy indeed, and together they named him Taliesin, and they brought him up with much kindness and love. Now, Taliesin means radiant brow. He had many adventures during his life, and he grew up to be a wonderful bard, told his tales, they were shared and enjoyed today and as forever. He's been known as the greatest bard of all. The greatest bard that this land will ever know. For the drops of wisdom and knowledge were still within inside him. He told a good story. Everyone likes a good story, don't they? Happy Halloween, everybody.